In my experience, building a bankroll from scratch is a royal pain in the you-know-what. It's hard to take the lowest levels seriously when you're playing for nickel and dime-sized pots, after buying in for less than the cost of a cheeseburger. This is especially true if you're used to playing for cheeseburger-sized blinds. In this video, I want to show you the fastest way possible to build a bankroll up from nothing to where you're able to make a decent hourly rate at, say, 100 or 200 an L. And the awesome thing is, you only have to make one simple change in your game in order to expedite your ascent up through the stakes. In fact, I used this exact method in a bankroll building challenge recently that started with $25 at 5 an L, and in only 25,000 hands I was already playing mid-stakes. So hang tight and let's get started. First off, this video is not really for beginning players or anyone who's struggling to beat the game. Even though my method of playing could probably help you improve faster, that's just not what this video is about. As a novice, building a cash game bankroll is more about progressing as a player and navigating that enormous learning curve that it takes to become a winning player. The speed at which bankroll grows is secondary to learning. In fact, people often end up having enough in their bankroll to move up to the next stake before their skill level is really ready to do so. In my experience, bankroll generally does increase much faster than skill. So this video is more geared towards people who are already winning players and just have to or want to build a bankroll or rebuild a bankroll for whatever reason. Maybe you don't have enough money to put in a poker right now because you took a shot at the nosebleeds and it didn't work out. Or maybe you had to cash out your entire bankroll due to financial reasons, or that's actually happened to me. Or perhaps you took a few months off or years off from the game and are just a returning player. Or you could just be doing it as a bankroll building challenge just for fun, like I've done recently. Regardless of the reason, you probably don't want to go slow when you're building your bankroll. You probably want to expedite it and build it as quickly as possible. From what I've found, there really isn't much good advice out there on building a bankroll fast. The answer most people or even so-called gurus give you is just play more volume or take shots at the next level often. Great, that's just what we need, right? We need to burn ourselves out and also at the same time increase our risk of ruin. Thanks a lot for the advice, guys, but no thanks. Now, before going into too many details on my bankroll building advice, let's take a look at a typical mainstream cash game bankroll management plan that many players are following or likely to follow. As you can see, on the left-hand side, that's the stakes, and that's the amount you need to move up to each level. So 5 and L, you need to move up. In order to move up to 5 and L, you need to have $100. In order to move up to 10 and L, you need $200, so on and so forth. And to the right there, you see that other number next to each stake, and that's basically the amount that if you don't run well, that's the amount you'll move back down to the previous stake. So for example, let's say you're at 25 and L and you have $600. Well, you're doing fine. But then let's say you run really bad and you look down to your bankroll and you have $360. Well, you know, your threshold for moving down is 375, so you go ahead and just start playing 10 and L again. And as long as you stick to a scheme like this, you're pretty much guaranteed, or it's very difficult to go broke because you're constantly moving up and down and you're not playing outside of your bankroll. When you're playing at the micros, reaching mid stakes or even small stakes can seem so far away, it's really easy to get discouraged. I mean, look at how much you have to play 200 an L, or at least, I mean, even take a shot at 200 an L. I mean, who the hell wants to keep $6,000 or more in an offshore online poker account nowadays? I mean, we all remember what happened on Black Friday, right? So there's a simple solution. Now hear me out. Please don't insta-click away from this video when I give you my advice. But the simple way to build a bankroll many times faster while not increasing your risk of ruin or your chances of burnout is just to buy in for less money. You've buy into the table for less than 100 big blind stack. I know, I know what you're thinking right now. Short stackers are scum, right? Everyone has hammered this idea into you ever since you first logged into a poker forum. But maybe, I mean, just maybe, people who are buying in for less than 50 big blinds are doing it for reasons other than just to piss everybody off at the table. Well, and I mean, in case you didn't know, I mean, short stacking has evolved quite a bit since the early days. No longer is it really about buying in for 10 or 20 big blinds and then just relentlessly shoving in on all in on people. In fact, I mean, profitable short stackers have been doing anything but being shove bots for, I mean, it's been a number of years now. The truth is, short stacking or playing a short stack can be brilliant if if only you forget about the bad press that they get. And instead, if you just take a close look at the actual strategy itself and take the viewpoint that short stacking is simply an excellent tool to mitigate risk and achieve a larger hourly rate faster. That's not to say there aren't other advantages of playing a short stack. In fact, there are a lot. I mean, there are many. I won't go into all of them right now, but we'll just say, I mean, the overall theme of what makes short stacking an attractive option for people is that decisions are typically much simpler in a low SPR environment, a stack to pot ratio environment. In other words, your threshold for being able to get all in with, say, a top pair type hand, goes, it changes a lot. I mean, you obviously don't want to get all in with top pair with 100 big blinds, but when you have 30, 40 big blinds, I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer on a flop, right? So decisions are a lot less complicated, especially post-flop, since most of your commitment decisions are made pre-flop or on the flop, like I said. So some of you might be thinking that short stacking is not profitable because of what you've heard in the past, right? How you want to have as much in your stack as possible when you're playing against weaker opponents, so you can maximize the amount that you could possibly win against them. Now, this is actually the biggest myth I hear out there when it comes to short stacking. Think about the biggest pots you play. I mean, how often do you actually get all in a session versus fish? That's not a cooler situation nowadays. I mean, it isn't really common that fish are even playing a 100 big blind stack anyway. I mean, you see fish playing 40, 50, 60 big blinds all the time, so you're really not losing that much by buying in for less than 100 big blinds. And in fact, in my experience as a short stacker, I mean, I've been doing this for years and years. I mean, going on 7 years now. The benefits of that you gain from playing a smaller stack than 100 big blinds far outweigh the negatives that you might lose a little bit of value against playing against fish. So now let's take a look at what a bankroll management scheme might look like if we were to buy in for 40 big blinds instead of the typical 100. Let's say we again start with $50, except now we can begin our bankroll building journey at 5 and L instead of 2 and L. Since 40 big blinds at 5 and L is $2, that gives us a full 25 buy-ins, which makes it extremely difficult to go broke. And here's what the schedule looks like. I mean, it's pretty much the same as before, except now the move-up thresholds are just a lot lower. So 25 and L on this one, you only need $200, whereas before we needed $500. So as you can see, you're just moving up through the stakes much quicker, and you can take a shot at 200 and L with a short stack, like 30 or 40 big blinds, when you have only like $2,400 in your bankroll. I mean, think about it. I mean, your buy-in's like what, $80? So if you happen to run bad and you drop 10 buy-ins, you would lose $800 and you'd be down to $1,600, which is not a big deal when you think about it. Any of you that have played 200 and L, you know how big the downswings can be. Now, when you compare the two bankroll management methods, the 40 and the 100 big blind methods, two things jump out at me the most. First of all, 100 big blinds is very slow going. As we spoke before, I mean, it can get frustrating to take so long to get up to where you're playing for more than just nickels and dimes, right? But when short stacking, I mean, you're basically a level ahead of your 100 big blind counterparts. When they're at 10 and L, you're at 25 and L. When they're at 100 and L, you're at 200 and L, so on and so forth. Number two, your bankroll requirements are a lot less when you're playing a short stack. So let's take, for example, the 200 NL shot. You're actually required to have $3,600 less money than you would need as a 100 big blind stack. And you're able to substantially decrease the amount of money you need to keep online at any given point to fund your play. And this is, as we spoke about before, an important consideration post Black Friday. Since unfortunately, risk management must figure into the calculus for any serious poker player, minimizing your exposure to the poker apocalypse is just plain smart nowadays. Now, you don't have to take my word or advice on this subject. I actually did a bankroll building challenge and documented the entire journey on both Twitch and YouTube. I called it the spare change challenge since I started my bankroll with just the spare change I had laying around the house. Some of it came out of the center console of my car. I started with, I think it was right around $25, and in 25,000 hands I was already playing 400 NL. Now, I've included a link to the first video of the challenge in the description below if you want to check it out. Also linked below is an article that I wrote on the subject of bankroll management that is similar to this video, except I give you a couple bonuses. I'll include a free bankroll management calculator, and I'll go into more detail on the hypothetical journey of two different players, one playing a 40 big blind stack and one playing a 100 big blind stack, and illustrate just how ridiculous it is to ever play a 100 big blind stack while building a bankroll. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with playing a starting stack of 100 big blinds. If that is your preferred method, there's nothing wrong with just building your bankroll with a short stack and then just switching back to playing a 100 big blind stack afterwards. Also, for tournament players out there, if you learn to play a 30 to 50 big blind cash game stack and build a bankroll that way, I can almost guarantee that you will be a much better player at the end of your journey when you switch back to tournaments, and that your ROI will be substantially increased as a result. I mean, just learning all the intricate math of shoving all in with 30 to 40 to 50 big blinds, I mean, with great repetition like that, and learning how to play post-flop spots with that stack size in a technically correct and mathematically correct manner is just going to infinitely increase your what you can do in a tournament. Just, you don't have to take my word for it. Just try it out. Now, gather those nickels, dimes, and quarters and get out there and start grinding that bankroll up. Good luck, and thanks for watching.